Thank you. Well, I have a reading before the sermon. It's called The Low Road by Marge Piercy. What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can set you up. They can bust you. They can break your fingers. They can blur you with drugs till you can't walk, can't remember. They can take your child. They can wall up your beloved. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. How can you stop them? Alone, you could fight. You could refuse. You could take what revenge you can, but they'll roll over you. But two people fighting back to back can cut through a mob. A snake dancing file can break a cordon. An army can meet an army. Two people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, touch, trust, hope. Three people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With four people, you can play bridge and start an organization. With six, you can rent a whole house and eat pie for dinner with no seconds and hold a fundraising party. A dozen makes a demonstration. 100 fills a hall. 1,000 have solidarity in their own newsletter. 10,000, you've got power and your own media, your own country. It goes on one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again after they've said no. It starts when you say we, and you know who you mean, and each day you mean one more. Marge Piercy. Well, I wanted to speak on the topic of moral injury, first of all, because it's close to Memorial Day. You may have known that because you saw furniture for sale, right? But it's a time when we remember military members who have given their lives for democracy and the values that this country purports to stand for. I wonder if we have any veterans in the room. Awesome, yes. Well, raise your hand if you have veterans in your ancestry or among your friends. Yes. We are proud of their service, but it's not without its price, because moral injury is very common among veterans. And if you haven't heard of it before, it refers to the damage that's caused to one's moral compass or conscience when we witness things, or we fail to prevent things, or even when we commit things ourselves that go against our ethics and our moral values. And it's an injury you usually can't see, but it leads to physical problems and mental torment and illness. Because soldiers have been told what to do by superior officers as long as there have been wars. And sometimes they just respond to orders or have a mission. And sometimes things happen that they regret or that end up haunting them. So I remember seeing a movie about a World War II soldier, and one day as he and his unit are preparing to cross a river, he sees a lone Nazi, and he has to kill that guy. And he makes eye contact with him just before he shoots him. And he knows that his opponent is no more than just a vulnerable, conscripted teenage boy. But he drops him anyway because that's what he is supposed to do. And for years after, that action comes back to him and seems to be the lens through which he grieves all that happened in the war. But moral injury is not just about participation in death. Sometimes it's betrayal of finding out that later your government told you a story like the Vietnam vets did when they were exposed to Agent Orange and they were initially told it wasn't dangerous. Or finding out that a war didn't really have to be fought at all. and that you were just used by your government in the name of some unjust purpose or policy. But the military is not the only place that we see moral injury. It happens to civilians, as we see now so devastatingly in Ukraine and Gaza. Moral injury is happening in our natural world, to the planet. On a smaller scale, people of color experience it when they are mistreated by the police that they thought were there to help and protect them. It happened to healthcare workers during COVID when they had to make life and death decisions, but they didn't have adequate supplies or support from their institutions, and people wouldn't go get vaccinated. It happens to children who get abused by family members and are told to stay silent. And it happens when churches that we were raised in say that God doesn't love us if we're gay or trans. So moral injury can uproot our worldview and our faith in humanity and one another. And it can get locked in our psyches. And if we don't watch out, it can cause us to be living in a place of perpetual fear and unhappiness. And sometimes it can cause us to be physically ill. Well, when it happens outside of wartime, sometimes people often sense something's wrong, but they just don't know how to name it. They just feel it. Well, I don't have to tell you there is a lot occurring right now. Because what is going on in our country, some of the policies, some of the things that are being said by our leaders, some of the turn of events, they're causing us to think, I don't believe this is supposed to be happening. How can it be that my government, that I thought stood for free press and free speech and social justice for the marginalized, that was designed to help people and educate them, and that was supposed to find solutions that brought enrichment and enlightenment to society. How can it be that that government, my government, has turned so authoritarian and so dark? And so for sure, a lot of the time we are feeling uncertain, we're feeling wounded, money cut off for university research and national parks, federal employees heartlessly fired and rehired and then fired again. Good residents and promising students deported or shipped to prison without due process. It just feels like a betrayal, and we have no power to do anything about it. And we are living in the middle of a moral injury. And so we may stand frozen, we may wait, we may be in denial about it, and we do risk creating more injury for ourselves if we turn a blind eye, or if we blame ourselves for not taking action against it. So step one really is just to name this. It's good, when you're sick and you don't know what it is, but you finally get a name for it, you somehow feel better even though you're still sick. Right? And so step two is just to not shame yourself for feeling the way that you do and for not knowing exactly how to handle it. But it is important to keep imagining a different future, a free future, and to keep hearing and telling the truth. It's important to say we and to know who we mean, and each day we mean one more, like Marge Piercy said. Well, this month the world celebrated the 80th anniversary of the storming of the beaches of Normandy. And that was an event that freed Europe from the grip of Nazi control and incursion. And as a part of that liberation, the troops freed thousands of Jews from concentration camps where an estimated 6 million people were killed. Well, that horror was a hitherto unimaginable moral injury, and that has affected humanity ever since. But when it began in the late 1930s, it was done with a very quiet start. Mostly just maybe a lightning bolt here and there, the taking away of privileges and jobs, controlling the media with propaganda. Rumors were that there were some other countries in Europe that needed to belong to the Reich. Have we heard anything about anything like that recently? There was a movement for Germanic white people to proclaim themselves proudly. That sounds a little familiar too. Well, people who knew that wrong was being done, but who had not yet been personally affected and didn't want to get on the wrong side of the authorities, sort of didn't know how to handle it. They thought maybe they were one of the lucky ones. But little by little, the evil grew. And so in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl tells the story of his own time in Auschwitz. And in his description of his moral injury, he talks about going through a period of shock, followed by a feeling of indifference and emotional numbing. So what we're going through is perfectly normal for what people have done before. And he knew that it was a survival strategy. And the worse that things got, the more he saw others becoming unresponsive to really heinous acts. But he was determined to survive, and he knew that the key to that was to know that he still controlled his own mind in the way that he thought and reacted. And he says, when we are not able to change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And so he sensed that this was above all a spiritual and an existential struggle. And so maybe you have been through things in your lives even before now that have been like that for you. And you realize that there was meaning to be found and lessons to be learned in every situation, no matter how devastating. And so Viktor Frankl found that he had this inviolable inner freedom. He knew inside of himself what was right, and he did not let anybody change that. We have Ralph Waldo Emerson, who tells us nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind, right? And Viktor Frankl also knew that he needed to frame a purpose, which gave him a reason to live, living there in Auschwitz. And he had to retain a seed of optimism that goodness still existed and that the current situation wouldn't last forever. He knew what love looked like, and he would not abandon his vision of that. And so those three things will empower us now as we think about living with moral injury. One, a strong sense of purpose to work for justice right now. The belief that kindness and love will ultimately prevail at some future time. And the unshakable value of our own held values. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that Unitarian Universalism is the perfect place to be as we stand up against moral injury that we are seeing today. And friends, we're going to learn things about ourselves that we might never have learned otherwise, and we are going to be bonded in ways as we go through this struggle that we have yet to uncover. A year ago, the things we're seeing in society were unimaginable. But now, we're the resistance. And this can be an exciting purpose for us, an exciting time. I have another minister friend who spoke recently, and her sermon was based on Star Wars. The title was something like, "The Force is with us." And of course, she meant Unitarian Universalism. We are ready to stand up against Darth Vader, and we are not in a galaxy far, far away. And so our great task right now is just to keep our eyes on the horizon and to keep our hearts full with our intentions to let love be at the center of everything that we do, even as we say, no, that is not right. No, you can't do that. We must have a will to find meaning in what's going on and to keep imagining something wonderful that lies beyond the unimaginable things we are currently experiencing. So I do encourage you to not spend too much time studying and denouncing what our leaders are doing now. I mean, that is so tempting to just like post another snarky meme on Facebook, right? Because your energy is needed to make meaning and to take action in better ways. But don't lose your faith. Don't lose your sense of purpose in caring for each other and for the planet. And what is faith really but an act of imagination for something that we must move toward and manifest step by step? UU Reverend Heather Concannon says, we must be willing to live for a time with a foot in both worlds. The one where we feel our lives and the lives of those we love to be endangered. Anybody who has a gay friend or a transgender child will know that. And the one where we know, our hearts know, that something lies ahead, the beautiful future that we haven't given up on. So this advice goes against the grain a little bit. We're told to live in the present and to not dwell on what happened in the past and to not spend too much time longing for something that we don't have. But right now, if we dwell too much in the present, we might be in danger of becoming demoralized or frozen. So we just need to stay capable of feeling and responding to one another. Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh says that if we allow our anxiety over what's happening in the world to fill our heart, we will get sick, and then we won't be able to help. Well, I have a friend who is a preschool teacher, and she told me that one fall she took her group of 3-year-olds out for a walk, and the trees were already bare, and they kicked through the fallen leaves as they walked, and she noticed that a lot of the children didn't seem to be enjoying themselves, and in fact they looked on the verge of tears. And so she said, "What's wrong?" And one little girl just looked back at her and said, "The trees are empty and all the leaves are coming off the trees." And she said, "Yes, but they're going to come back again, and it's going to be pretty and green again." And then all the 3-year-olds who had no memory of seasonal cycles went, "Yay, the leaves will come back." And so we are in a very uncertain season right now. And some of us have never lived through anything like this before. I mean, we can be my age and still never have lived through anything like this now. And so I know that there is this fear that it may be permanent, and that we don't know what to do about it. And so we need to be reminded by people like Viktor Frankl that even the worst moral injuries are survivable. And so know what is happening and name it as the moral injury it is, but don't succumb to your fear or shut down or judge yourself for what you're feeling. Just listen to your internal voice telling you that you know what right relationship is. Listen to your body and your conscience informing you what is true and right, and follow that. And believe in community and hold your vision of the future. And I will say this too, that consider finally that you, as good as you are, you yourself may have been the one who, like a soldier, who got mixed up in something larger than himself. You may have, at some point, done harm to someone. And consider that you may have wounded them. And stay curious about what you may uncover in this time about yourself. Well, one of the things that cures moral injury is being listened to. And that is a very easy and real thing that we can do for one another. So hear the narratives. And if you know that you have done something or have created injury for someone, attend to that. In South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that ended apartheid involved this deep listening between black and white. And so go wherever you need to go and apologize or ask to be reconciled into a new day, because woundedness, in whatever form it comes, requires awareness and release in order to not be perpetuated. And so it requires us to be unlocked and to imagine something else, to believe in a different future that holds beauty and wisdom. And so keep one foot in our resistant community, but be open to the fact that at some point, community must mean all of us. All of us. And so as we travel through this, tell your own story and find comfort in knowing that you have people that you can turn to, people with kindness and character and determination that provide you with understanding and healing. And reach out for help if you need it, especially if you're already marginalized or struggling with systemic injustice. It may hit you more than it does some of the rest of us. There are battles we have fought, but we are soldiers ourselves now in a battle that we're fighting. These are victories which will be hard won perhaps, but to be sure, despite what we're going through, we may learn, and we may be grateful to receive, and at last call this experience sacred. Let us pray. Spirit of life, we come carrying wounds seen and unseen, harms we have suffered and harms we have caused. Some burdens were laid upon us unjustly by those we trusted, by systems that failed, by silence where there should have been truth, by betrayal when we needed love and care. Some burdens we carry from our own actions, words we regret, moments we've turned away, failures of courage and compassion. So let us name our pain and place it gently into the universe. Help us to release what we no longer need to carry, and let joy begin to stir again. Let us be healed by community, restored by kindness, restored by spirit. Teach us how to imagine the future, speaking truth without hatred, seeking justice without vengeance, and walking always in peace. Amen. Well, let's stand now for our closing hymn, number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere.